My family and I went away on vacation over the winter break, and we stopped on the island of St. Thomas. And while we were there, I went with my mom to a botanical garden called Fantasia. It's about a 2-acre garden, and in it she has a large collection of orchids. And I've always had orchids here and there. People give them as, a hostess gift, or I buy one when I'm at the grocery store, one of those things. But I've never really tried to keep an orchid. I kind of let it bloom, and then when it goes over, I keep it for a little bit, and then I tend to just get rid of it. So after visiting this garden, I thought I really want to make an effort to try to regrow orchids. And I decided in this video to do a island inspired sort of tropically kind of arrangement for me to put in my house that features orchids. So let's just get started. So what I'm starting with is a vessel. You can use whatever vessel you like. I have this, if you can see, it is like a big oyster shell. It's not a real oyster shell. It's one that's just like a cast one that I purchased online. What I like about it is that it gives that sort of island feel. So this has no drainage. So what I'm going to start with first is putting some stones in the bottom. And this is going to help with the drainage away from the plants. On top of these stones, I think I'm going to try to put some moss. And the reason I've got this purple moss that I'm never going to use this for any type of arrangement. It's not really kind of my style. So I'm going to lay this on top. And the only reason I'm doing that is just to help wick the water away a little bit, as well as to make it so that the pots aren't moving. And I'm going to keep these in the pots because the lady that I bought them from, she sells a lot of indoor plants and a huge collection of orchids. She said that they weren't quite ready to be potted up and to leave them in these containers. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to give them a good drink first, because what I learned is that if your roots are this sort of silvery color, that means that they're drying out. You want them to stay green. Let's see if this one's more watered. If I can get it out. But you can sort of see through the plastic that they are a green color. She said you want them to be a nice green color. That means that they're good and hydrated, and you don't want to overwater because then they start to rot. But for the arrangement, I'm going to start with, so what I have is, I have these two like this that were blooming. And then she had another couple. I have two that don't have flowers yet, but they have the flower buds. So I thought that would be nice to have some that weren't quite flowering yet, so then I didn't have sort of a one-hit wonder type arrangement. So what I'm going to do first is I think I'm going to put the larger ones in the back of the arrangement. I'm going to actually take out, one thing I don't like about the orchid arrangements are these little hair clips that they put on. I'm going to take this thing off, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to attempt to do with this arrangement to just make it look a little nicer. It just looks so unnatural to to have these like hair clips stuck on your arrangement. So I'm going to set those aside. Okay, I think that's good. So I am going to use this moss to kind of hold these in place while I put the other plants in. I'm going to get my potting soil, because along with the orchids, now you would never pot an orchid in potting soil. You would use an orchid soil blend, which is like a bark blend, or you can use a moss. The moss is going to hold the water more than a bark. So if it is in moss, and if you get one that when you buy it, it's in moss, you're just going to make sure that you're not overwatering because the moss is going to be able to hold more water than the bark. So, but what I'm also planting with the orchids are a collection of these little ferns. I have a whole bunch of different ones. So pretty. So I'm going to kind of create a bit of a little tropical arrangement. A nice little maidenhair fern. And I want to have that kind of dancing at the back. It's got the most height out of all of my ferns. So I'm going to put that at the back. And I do plan to put this on a table against a wall. So I don't have to be as concerned about the back. But definitely from the side, I don't want it to be, you know, leaning back or anything like that. I still want it to look nice from all angles. So I have two of them. I'm going to put another one on the other side. And I'm just moving all the soil kind of around the container. Okay. Then I'm going to look at my selection of ferns, and I think I want, what's this one called? Silver lace. I think I'm going to put a silver lace one. So when you're making an arrangement of plants, you want to look at color and texture. So this is a nice leafy green with a fine texture. This one still has a fine texture, but it's got this silver blue in it. So I think the contrast between the two will be nice. So that's why I'm going to put this one on the edge. Plus I like how it has some longer bits that I think will dangle off the side, which will be nice. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Oh wait, is that? Yeah, that's this one. Now I have a couple things I also grabbed. I had this big shell. And I thought it would, well, I had two shells. I have this little shell, which my son grabbed when we were on the island, and I thought it was so pretty, and he'll be really excited to see it in the arrangement. So I thought, but it was just one little shell, so I thought, well, maybe I'll put a big shell. I wonder, actually, I was just thinking now, I wonder if I could plant one of these. That might be nice, putting a fern inside the shell. Maybe I'll try that. So I'm going to tuck the shell in the front. And then let me see if I put some soil in the shell. I don't know if it'll look good or if it'll look better to just have the shell sitting there. Sometimes a little bit of negative space without plants is actually kind of what makes the arrangement, I don't know, makes everything else stand out more. So I'm going to just, see if you can see. I do this all the time when I'm doing container gardens, is you can just flatten the roots a little bit if you need to kind of cram something into a spot. So I'm going to try that with this little fern. Okay, so that's that fern. Now, in the arrangement, I have this larger shell right now. So to sort of balance that weight, I'm gonna put on the other side this fern, which is a crocodile fern. Very nice. And I'm going to put that on the other side because I feel like it balances the weight of the visual weight of the shell. So I'm gonna do that. Now, I need to get the whole reason for the arrangement, my little pretty orchids in. These are the two that are blooming. Okay, so I'm gonna put this one maybe right. Okay. So I'm gonna tuck that one. Again, I'm keeping these in the pot because I don't want them potted in the potting mix. They'll be too wet that way. And she said that they do like their roots constricted, so you don't want to pot them up into a much larger pot, even if it is with the orchid mix. That's more the bark mix. Even with that, you only want to pot up just a very little bit with orchids. You like to keep them a little bit restricted. So in they are. Right now they are flopping, but I have an idea to kind of hold things up just a little bit more. liking this one in. Okay, so I'm going to tackle that one on the other side. Again, I'm going to kind of just take off any of the excess potting soil in, and I'm just going to kind of like flatten it. And you want to, if you do this, if you sort of flatten the plant to kind of get it into a space, you want to make sure it's well hydrated when you do that. You don't want to do it with a dry plant. Okay, so I'm going to tuck him in right there. Now I want to kind of mirror, since I've been kind of mirroring everything, this little guy out front. So, and this one is called a ribbon fern. Very pretty. I love ferns as well. So look at how you want it to hang in the arrangement. I think I want it to hang like this. So now I have, pretty. Okay, now I have a choice between green fantasy fern or lemon button. And I think I'm going to go with the lemon button because I have the lemon button in the shell, and I think the two together look substantial there, and it's a little bit of a smaller fern, so I think it's going to be better for the space. I always kind of make a little bit of a mess when I'm potting things up. It's kind of a little bit of why I like potting things up, is making a little bit of the mess. It's kind of like the, you know, when you'd make mud pies and things like that as a kid. I loved doing that. So, all right, then I'm just going to move some soil around so all the roots are covered. So now that I have all of the plants in place, the next thing I'm going to do is wash my hands. So I have just a pack of birch sticks here, and I'm going to stick them in where I think I'm going to want to attach the orchid. Now, actually with this one, what I'm thinking about doing, I have twine and I can tie it on, but I'm thinking that if I put this in here, I can actually maybe just weave it through, and that will kind of hold it up. Now, do I like that? My real-time decision making here. I think that's pretty. I'm gonna go with that. Just instead of tying it, just using the twig to kind of just hold the stem up. It allows it to still look natural, but it's, you know, it's holding it up more than just having it flop forward. This one I'm just going to put in the center because I think it's a nice centerpiece to just continue the sticks like this. Now, do I want this one up? I think these other ones that will bloom out like that is going to look really pretty. I'm just going to put one more stick back here just to balance out the sticks. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is take some moss to kind of clean up the edge. And I have a mix of moss. So I have, this is called mood moss, and it tends to be like a little pillow, and it has more of a pillow shape. I want that at the front because I'm going to rest Oliver's, that's my son's name, Oliver, his prized treasure shell on top for him to admire. Let's see. Yeah, that's going to look pretty. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. When you're using the mood moss, it's good to soak it first. It makes it soft and pillowy and more malleable. But then I'm going to use, bought this pack that had a bunch of different ones. I like a little bit of this moss that's more like the Spanish moss in the sort of brown color. You can get it dyed as well. But what I like about this brown color, pull some off. what I like about the brown color is it just adds a little bit more texture. It's going to kind of tie in the sticks a little bit with the brown, and just a little less green, so everything isn't green, green, green everywhere. Just it lets the plant stand out a little bit more if you have it against something that isn't green. And then one little tip I'm going to suggest, and this is something, it is a little bit controversial what I'm going to say, but what you can do is you have your beautiful arrangement all done, and the ferns are still, you know, growing beautifully and looking beautiful, but the orchids have died back, and that's fine. You'll see, like, it'll still be a pretty arrangement. But what you can do is, and I have done this before, is just get some artificial orchid stems and tuck them in. The ones they make right now, I mean, you can barely tell that they're artificial. And if you just want to have a little bit longer life while you're waiting for your orchids to rebloom, it just gives the longer life to the arrangement. So I'm going to put moss all the way around, and I'm also going to put anywhere I need to cover the pots. I love Spanish moss, like the real, like, you know, the Spanish moss hanging off the trees when you go in the south. It's if there's one thing I could one thing I could put in my garden, it would be to have those big live oaks with Spanish moss coming down. Oh, it's so beautiful. Just tucking any last little bit of moss. You can also trim it with the scissors too, which I might do for some of these longer bits that are hanging down, just so it's not falling out. There is our little arrangement. I will spin it around. Oops, I said this is tippy. There's the little arrangement. When these orchids bloom, there'll be more color. And like I said, I might actually tuck a few of the artificial ones in to get a little bit more bloom and color without, you know, this way you don't have as much root ball space, and you get more of the flowers in. But I think that is really pretty. What I'm going to do is water everything in reasonably well, keeping in mind that the pot has no drainage, water the orchids, and then this was a plant food that was recommended to me, which is an orchid plant mist. So instead of the water soluble, you can spritz the plant with this orchid feed. And then another tip that I got with orchids for getting them to bloom is to move them into a colder area in the evening. So I'll do that with the orchids, especially when they're done blooming and I want them to, you know, kind of go into their, you know, reblooming cycle, is bringing them into a warmer spot during the day and in a little bit more sun, and then I'll bring them into my garden room here, which is a little cooler, in the evening. And I am going to sit this in a bright but not in direct sun, and I'm going to keep it away from any cold drafts or any hot drafts. So I will keep it away from the window. I'm going to keep it away from a door. I'm going to keep it away from a heat vent, but I still want it to get some brightness, but I don't want it to be sitting in direct sun. So this is my St. Thomas Island inspired arrangement, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.